and welcome to Voices of the West. Today we have a excellent guest, Mr. Mr. Jeff Crawford. He is one of our trifectas going on here. He has books running on Dusty Saddle, on Raventail, and on Magnolia Blossom. So you're hitting things on all basic categories. Thank you for joining us today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's a treat and an honor.
Definitely here too. I've seen your work coming across all over the place all the time in all kinds of different formats. So definitely no stranger to the area.
No, when it comes to writing, I'm sort of a believer in what my grandfather always said. He said, "There's no rest for the wicked, and the righteous doesn't need any." So I'm not sure which one of those I fall into, but I try to stay busy.
Well, you're keeping up on producing a lot of product for a lot of different genres and all doing quite well on everything. So congratulations on all of those.
Thank you very, very much.
But today we're talking about Westerns, since this is Voices of the West. So I want to look a little bit about why Westerns? You do horror, you do suspense, well, mainly your suspense, but why a Western?
It was natural. For the easy answer is it was a natural place to go. I was a cowboy as a young man. That's what I did for a living. I started that when I was still in high school. I found out that I had enough requirements in my senior year to where all the classes I took were electives, and except for one. So I didn't have to be in school if I didn't want to be. Once I found that there was a program that I could get hired, get graded, and get paid for. So I did that because it furthered my state farmer degree in FFA, which I was working towards. It accomplished a lot of things. The main one was getting me out of school. I hated being in school. So I went to school 1 hour a day and I worked the rest of the time. I went to work at 4:30 in the morning. Came back home at 7, went to school, got out at 9 o'clock, went back to the ranch and stayed till 5. And I took care of 120 horses for an entire school year. During that time, a big cattle ranch had heard about me and hired me to be their herdsman. So I started that 2 days after graduating school. And I was 16 years old and I was the herdsman of the largest Charolais ranch in the Southeast. And I had about 1,800 head of cattle I watched after and was responsible for. So that's a long way around to say that when I finally got into writing, the Western was going to be a natural go-to. It just took me several books to feel confident in what I was doing to do it correctly. Because I think too much of Western genre to do it incorrectly. And there's a lot of those out there. And I didn't want to be a part of it.
Well, you mean it's real easy to write a Western, and guy walks into a town, has all his family shot, and has to go after and take revenge, right?
Yeah, it's even worse. It is, but it's even worse than that. I grew up ranching, and that's what I did. And I never once rustled up some grub when I was hungry. When I wanted a drink of liquor, I never had a shot of red eye. I never went with my pappy to the back 40. Those are things that really get under my skin. Just because it's a cowboy book or a Western doesn't mean it has to be a bunch of hicks and yokels. Write it well, write it interesting, write it professionally, but don't make everybody in there seem, made out to be idiots, and that's what a lot of cheaper Westerns do. And I wasn't going to have it.
Excellent. Well, we definitely appreciate that because we want the best darn Westerns we can get our hands on. And definitely everybody being half dumb, inbred folks as it goes that way. That's not really what we're here about.
Right. Well, you've got a lot of class in your stables. I mean, you've got some real heavy hitters that do the job right. And I'm not talking about myself in there. I'm talking about you've got a lot of good guys.
Hey, you're stepping into it all now. You're a regular with all the Dusty books.
I hope so.
I mean, yes, it's a little bit different than the, a giant attacking sea monster type things and stuff like that. But
Oh, boy, howdy. It really is.
so what inspires you about the Western? You've got the background into all of it, and kind of you've been raised in that entire environment. What inspires you with it?
Uh, I think that because there's always, in my case, I think there's always the ability or the possibility of a chance to write the good guy who's not entirely good.
Hmm.
They're not all Lone Rangers. And that's okay. I like the good guy in the white hat, but sometimes the bad guy or the good guy has to be a little rough, has to be a little bad to make things happen. And I tend to like characters that ride that fence and straddle that. They have to be a little bit of both. And that's what makes it interesting to me. And you can do that with a lot of different books, but with westerns, uh, you tend to give them a little more leniency because of the surroundings. They have to be able to do a little more out without breaking the law, but they have to be able to bend it a little more than most because of where they live and the environment and the situation. And I like being able to do that in the Western.
Hmm. Definitely. You're on your own out there, and they all basically know how to survive on their own living out there. They're not necessarily all going around gunning down everything that moves, but they know how to
Yeah,
survive.
exactly. It sort of goes back to, I'm the law on this ranch or whatever. You could boil it down to a quick statement, but that's the way it worked. And I like writing those guys.
Definitely. And to a degree, from my perspective on things, the more flaws that a character has, the more interesting they are to read about.
Oh, absolutely. Um, uh, it, the you don't get scars and gray hair from easy lives. You get those from experiences and situations, and every one of those are a story. Um, Maybe it's only interesting to one other person, but it's a story, and I think they're worth being told.
What do you think is the best way to promote Westerns to today's audience?
Part of what you're doing today, part of what you've been doing. I like that. I think today everybody is so attuned to visual. They've got to see something coming at them. Um, an ad in a newspaper may not do it. A flyer in the library about a new book coming out may not do it. But something in their face that they say, hey, there's the guy that wrote this book and he's talking. And we'll give it 15 seconds with my attention and listen. I think visuals that they can relate to for a few seconds is a great thing. Um, Social networking, it still works, whether it's TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, whatever. It gets people's attention and it gets you noticed. I don't know how much, and I don't understand the algorithms, and I don't pretend to, and I'm not going to try. But I do post on there, and people do see my stuff, and some days you'll hit it right and you'll do a video and it'll be 37, and the next day you'll hit it wrong and you'll have a video that has 950 in the same amount of time. So I don't understand how that works, but I know I get comments and hey, I just saw this or whatever. So I think the more visual a publisher and a writer can be about what they do, the better off you are.
Hmm. Definitely. When it comes to writing a story, for you, what comes first, the plot or the characters?
The plot would come last. Um, it's usually the setting. I just if especially if I don't know what I'm doing. if I have no idea where it's going to go, I'll start describing a day or a town or the weather. And it sort of leads me to wherever I need to go. Now, with the case of the series that I'm working on now, the Noah Whalen series, when I hadn't started it yet, and Nick called me one day and he said, would you write a 5-book series in the more traditional style? I said, well, let me think about it a minute. And he said, you just get back to me. I said, if you'll hang on for just a minute, I'll let you know. He said, okay. And unusual for him, he sat there quietly. And I thought for a minute and I said, yeah, I'll do it. He said, what were you thinking about? I said, I had to establish a character and decide if I could write 5 stories about him. And he said, you did that in a minute. And I said, that's how it works. I said, I've either got it or I don't. So I did. So it's usually the setting, where it's going to happen and who it's going to happen to. And then you just take off running and hope that when you land, there's a mattress or something under there for you to land on.
So you don't plan these things out for a 5-book.
Oh God, no. I don't even plot the book, much less a series. I write and figure it out as I go until the last 5 chapters. And then I'll write 15 through 20 or whatever it is. And I'll give it 1 sentence each. This is what this chapter's about. And this is how it's going to end. And that's it. The rest of the time I'm flying by the seat of my britches.
So you get yourself all tied up into a giant ball and then give yourself 5 chapters to get out of it.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. It's exactly. Most of the time, I have no idea how a book's going to end. Sometimes I wonder if they're ever going to. And then I finally get to the end of, okay, this is how it's going to wrap up. I've got to do this. It's a checklist. Okay. Like going on vacation. Did I pack this? Okay. Everything's there. Now I can go. And that's how the last 5 chapters works in a book.
Definitely. It's a good format to be able to work with on that, because that wraps it up and you got to be able to have it go for the next book if you're going to be running a series. Exactly.
See, I didn't have any idea how to write a series when I first got in touch with, originally it was Raventail who got in touch with me about that. And I handed them a book. I'd heard they wanted a book, a certain kind of book. I wrote a certain kind of book. I gave it to them. And I was just hoping, because I'd never signed with a publisher before. I'd done everything on my own. And the girl came on there and she said, I like this book. She's holding it up. She said, I've liked it. I've read it twice in the last week. She said, but I don't want it. She said, I want 3 exactly like it. I said, I've never written a series before. I don't know how to do that. She said, well, figure it out. And that's where I learned to do a series. And now it's as comfortable for me to write a series, maybe more so than a standalone, because you've got to cover everything in that one book. Series, you can go back and you can fix little things or expound on things, but it's a different animal, but it was fun. It was fun getting used to it.
Well, now you should be about done with book number 4 of your overall series right now, right?
I'm working on it. I just started it Sunday night and was out of town Monday, but we're about 10,000 words into it now. So I'm expecting mid-May, somewhere in there, 4 come out. 3 just came out last Thursday. Maybe the fastest I've ever written a book in my life, completely done and edited and at the market in 28 days.
Wow.
I've never done a book like that. And I'm not taking anything away from the guys who like these 29, 30,000 word books. I can't do them. I can't tell a story that short a period. So these are 40, 43, 45,000 words, so it's you have to hammer it pretty good, but it's a lot of fun, especially this series. For some reason, it is writing itself faster than I can type. I've had to learn to become a very quick typist. in this series for some reason.
Noah is wanting to jump off the page at you.
Yeah, yeah. It really does. It's because he's so damn interesting. He's a good guy. I mean, he's the kind of guy you would want to know and be allied with. But he's also the only guy that was ever kicked out of the Rangers, because he was too hard. Okay, these guys we're chasing them, but they don't deserve what you're doing to them. So they kicked him out. And when you can write a good guy that's that bad, it's fun. It is a lot of fun.
Well, speaking of that, what do you think the readers nowadays, do you think of the readers when you're writing a story and what they want to be able to see, or are you writing a book that you want to be able to write?
I do more of that than I used to. I think of the readers. I think, okay, are they going to get invested in this? What's going to hold their interest? I used to not do that. I used to write what I wanted to read. And I still do to a certain extent, but I think about the readers more than I used to. And by that, I'm talking about probably 85, 90% now versus 50% years ago. I said, I'm thinking to myself, okay, if I write this, is this going to be, I don't want to put a funny line in there, but the reader may like a break. They may want to read something funny and comical. All right, I'll put that in there for them. It still works. So yeah, I'm doing a lot more for them than I ever did before.
Excellent. So as you finish up book 4 and move on to book 5, what do you think's next in the pipeline after that?
I don't know. I hope it's something big. I really do. Because after I finished Noah 4 and 5, which I promised Nick I'd have by July, and it looks like it's going to be the end of June now. Then the next book will be number 30. And I think that's something to do, a little extra with. So I don't know what 30 is going to be. Hell, I didn't know what 5 was going to be. I didn't know if there would be a 5, and then there was a 10, and then all of a sudden it hit 20, and now I'm looking at 30, which is paltry compared to some of the guys that you have there with, 115, 118, 120, 180.
Yeah, all in the same character.
Yeah, God, no, I'd go out of my mind. But I would. I'd completely lose it if I had to do that. But I don't know. I have no idea what 30 is going to be. But I hope it's special. I really do. I think it deserves to be special.
Well, in terms of a Western and your experience as a cowboy and such like that, what's a story that you've always wanted to write?
Stephen King's already done it. The story I would write, if I could, would be the Dark Tower series that Steve King did. In fact, I was talking to Richard Chismar one day, Steve's writing partner. And he said, how'd you get into writing a horror that was a Western when I did the Gun Hand series? Mm-hmm. And I said, I read The Dark Tower, and the very first line in the very first book said, and the dark man fled across the desert and the gunslinger followed after him. And I said, that impacted me so much that I wrote an entire series based on that one sentence. And he said, really? Yeah. And he said, I'll tell Steve you'll get a kick out of that. But that's the kind of thing I would like to write. I would like to write that I wrote Troublesome Bones. I wanted to write a dark, twitchy Western. And I did with Troublesome Bones. It's standalone. And it's one where you had a clear-cut good guy, a very bad guy, and then a much worse one. And you end up, whether you meant to or not, you ended up following the one in the middle because, okay, you're hoping for the good guy, but you don't want any part of the bad guy. And that's as close as I've gotten to writing one of those that really puts you on edge. But those are fun to write. Those I do dark a whole lot better than I do dandelions and unicorns. I can't do them. I had somebody ask me one time, said, what's it like having all those dark things inside of you? I said, same as it is for you. I just found a way to let mine come out and play, you know.
Sounds like almost a pure Southernism going on there.
Yeah. There's a lot of that with me. Being in North Carolina and raised in Florida. Yeah, it's everything's below Mason-Dixon with me.
What's the most valuable piece of advice that you can give about writing to someone that's trying to starting on their first book and doesn't have 30 already sitting there on the racks?
Throw your phone in the other room. Turn off the word count and write. You can have a story. You can have imagination. You can have vocabulary. And all of those are hugely important. But nothing is as important as patience. Do not hurry through something you're on to get to something that you think is better. I don't care if it takes you 15 pages to get to that one paragraph. Make those 15 pages count, because they're equally as important as what you think it is. Patience is the number one thing. And it took a long time for me to be patient with a book. And then once I did, then I don't know how many readers were pleased, but I was pleased. And if I'm pleased, then I've got to believe that the reader will be eventually.
So of your 30 books, what would you have somebody start on if they wanted to get into Jeff Crawford as an author? Pick your favorite child now.
The Gun Hand series for Raventail, all 6 books. There's nothing about them I don't like. Everything about them is pretty doggone perfect, I think. Or Ashes in the Wind over at Magnolia Blossom, and they're cringing right now that I'm saying that because they're scared to death of me over there. This is the guy that writes horrors and westerns and creatures, and he can't write romance.
But there's romance an entire genre just of itself.
Well, it's not dark, it's just my other stuff is a little bit, and then they had the westerns, and I think some of those people over at Magnolia who I love and appreciate, I think they were scared of me, but they shouldn't be. I'm as sweet as sugar and gentle as a lamb. But Ashes in the Wind from Magnolia may be as fine a book as I'll ever write. And it was a romance book, but it was very true to life. It's very relatable. And I think if somebody came up to me and said, what's the one book I need to read to really just be engrossed in? I'd say Ashes in the Wind, or the Gun Hand series from Raventail, or the Noah Wayland series from Dusty Saddle. One of those 3, you pick them.
Or go buy them all right now. Basically.
Or go buy every dadgum one of them.
Nobody will complain about that.
No, buy every one of them, and then start in on Ashes, and then go to Charles's, and then go to Grady's, and just go right down the line.
Seems like very good advice for getting that. And again, you've managed to do the trifecta that very few of our other authors have done, of working in all 3 genres that we sell on things.
Well, I figured the reader gets just as bored reading the same thing over and over again as a writer does writing the same thing over and over again. I like to write modern day romance as much as I like to write, 1876 westerns set in San Antonio, Texas. It's same as I like to write whaling stories from 1836 Nantucket. It's just fun for me to try different things.
Yeah, always on the move. That's kind of my thing when working with covers on that. I have a different job every day, and it's fascinating and challenging at the same time.
Oh yeah. And you do some super covers.
Your gun hands were amazing.
Yeah. I've had people that would not touch those books because they were scared to death of the covers. And I said, no, you got to get past that. But they said that's just creepy.
Kind of the point.
It really is. It really is. But yeah, it's you can't diversify yourself too much. I mean, you don't want to jump around so much that you never get good at one particular thing. But once you know that you're confident in your ability to do that, try something else. I'm never going to write sci-fi. I tried that one time, and that's way too technical for me. I'm not geared that way. But yeah, I'm not afraid to try a few things.
Oh, now I'm trying to figure out how to make you do a sci-fi Western.
They already did it. It was called Star Wars.
I was going to say Firefly, but yeah.
Firefly. There you go. I'd forgot about that one. But yeah, Star Wars was, and Star Trek was supposed to have been Wagon Train to the Stars, and
Allegedly, yes.
allegedly, but I'll stick with Star Wars. It was a pretty good Western. But
Well, very good. Where can people discover more about your work?
at Dusty Saddle, at Raventail, at Magnolia, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Amazon author page is probably the easiest and fastest. Look it up. It's got all 27 books listed there and all the links to them. And any of those social network sites, I'm not a snob. I'm like most of the guys that I've heard on there. You drop me a message or ask me a question about a book, I'll sure answer it for you right then. I like talking with people about books. Not, doesn't it have to be about my books? We'll just talk. I like talking writing. I like talking reading.
Absolutely. Books are a wonderful thing that way.
It is.
All right. Well, Jeff, thank you very much for joining me today, and appreciate all of your time to do this, and looking forward to number 30 coming out.
Oh, thank you very much. And it was a blast. I had a great time talking with you.